And we are live. Welcome to another episode of Business Focus Live with me, John, wherein we talk about business related topics as well as news from here and around the world. If you're new to this channel, don't forget to subscribe and let's get started. And we're back. Thank you again for joining me today. So in this week's episode, we'll be talking about uh, things that has happened in the past week or so. So to start off, we mentioned obviously based on the title, MCUs Phase 4. So after the culmination of the Avengers Endgame, which did really well, and Disney is capitalizing on that popularity now. Will it be a success or not? Well, only time can tell. But based on the initial aftermath, in a sense, films like Eternals, Shang-Chi, and then you have Black Widow's controversy. Things are not looking good. How about in terms of their TV Disney Plus launch of MCU's films? No, TV show, sorry. Next, we'll be also talking about a very popular TV series in South Korea, which you have already watched or not, regarding the Squid Game. Kind of funny, despite doing really well, significant well, the ISP provider in South Korea is suing Netflix here. Do they have a merit here? We'll talk about that as well. Next is a very surprising detail regarding the chip shortage here. Now, demand for affordable laptops, obviously for work, personal, or even school purposes would be ideal, right? Given that we're all stuck at home, for work and even education. Well, demand for affordable laptops are on the decline. What could that cost be? We'll talk about that. And next, we'll be talking about, with the upcoming Christmas holidays around the corner, big retailers are cashing in, banking on the people's penchant for buying gifts for the holidays, and they want to take advantage by generating adverts here from many known brands here. And lastly, we'll be talking about cars here. Now, if you like sports car here, now I won't say it's comparable to the likes of Ferrari and Lamborghini and such, but one of my favorite sports car, the Mazda Miata, is a very affordable, practical sports car, if you can say that. Anyway, they've recently launched the MX-5, so we'll take a look at that as well. Anyway, so let's begin. So to start off, as mentioned, so regarding the Phase 4, Phase 4 stage for Disney as well as for Marvel, they're really pushing a lot of content, not just in films but as well as in their streaming services, Disney Plus. Now, is it going to make headway or create a lot of hype or create the same success that it did pre Phase 4? Now, I have my doubts here, as we will talk in detail. So let's take a look here. Yes, and obviously, the names that they're discussing here for the Phase 4 doesn't create a lot of the same excitement as it did way back when Iron Man was going to be launched. Then you have Thor, then you have Captain America, the big names that are popular in the Marvel franchise. So they're now pushing in other characters here with the likes of Shang-Chi, as mentioned. So there are plans for the sequel, which, if you were to look based on the result, did it do well? It's hard to say. And obviously, the main handicap here for many of the MCU films is many pertaining to this year alone, that many of those films that was launched hasn't been seen in the China market here, which obviously has a big impact in their global revenue. And considering the performance it did domestically, which is to say the least. Let's see, I think I have a date. Let me see here. What was the... Yes, looking at the numbers that come here, and if we were to look the worldwide box office as of today, you have Black Widow, which was launched early this year or mid this year, has only generated a total box office of 376. So would you consider that a hit compared to other franchises that was launched pre-COVID? Then you have Shang-Chi, which has been launched since September, and October, November, so roughly around 3 months. It did much better, but not that much. It reached as much as $418 million. So compared to other franchises, maybe when the initial MCU was launched from the Incredible Hulk, which was a paltry, meaning the first Thor film was at the same, what did better, slightly better than what Shang-Chi is. Now, obviously, Thor is a more known character in the Marvel universe compared to Shang-Chi. So, obviously, people are not going to be that excited if it's a more known, let's say, if we're talking of another reboot of, let's say, the Iron Man character, or even Spider-Man, which is going to be released later this year. So, I'm positive that it can do well, but for the other films that they're going to release, not just this year but in the next few years, I'm very skeptical in terms of the performance that it's going to do, let alone considering what they have plans for releasing it in their streaming services here. Let's see here. So as you can see here, they're considering releasing a new reboot for the Fantastic Four, and again, they've done this in not necessarily MCU, but the film of Fantastic Four has been gone through 2 iterations, I think, and it did not fare well. For some reasons, they are not able to capitalize on the popularity of the characters there. And obviously, at the end of the day, for a film to be successful, regardless of what film they showcase, is the story itself. Now, are they going to follow the storyline based on the comic books, or are going to circumvent again different social issues they want to integrate here, which turns off a lot of people? So based on the films that was launched this year alone, as I mentioned, Black Widow, Shang-Chi, and even Eternals, well, the results speaks for themselves, whether you agree with the social issues at hand or not, which shouldn't be the considering point in the first place. Is the film good enough that can stand on its own? But the verdict is out there, and it's not looking too good for the franchise here. Anyway, so even the Thunderbolts, I don't know who the Thunderbolts are. Thundercats, maybe? And there has been delayed in many of the upcoming launch with the Black Panther 2. I think the production was halted. So it could delay, and who knows what will happen. And I think if you remember, regarding the sequel to Captain Marvel, was supposed to be Captain Marvel 2, right? But due to the lukewarm response to the character of Carol Danvers here, they've changed the title to The Marvels. So not only to focus on her, but the other iterations of the Captain Marvel character here. So I'm very pessimistic, really, to be honest. Now, later this year, which they're going to launch the sequel, or the last sequel for the Spider-Man No Way Home, I think it's going to do much better there. Now, question here is, obviously, after this year's launch, what will happen to the Spider-Man franchise? Will MCU still be able to continue with the story, or obviously for Sony's benefit, they want to hold on to it and create their own universe of sorts to integrate with the recent launch of Venom and Carnage and all of those characters that are intertwined, which are doing really well if you consider that compared to the MCU films. Now, obviously not at the same level, but nonetheless. Let's see here. Yes, and there's also the Hawkeye TV series is going to be launched later this year. Now, is it going to be a successful? Again, it all depends on the popularity of the character. Now, this is just my opinion. Now, Hoka is not one of the mainstays. You would say that, that connotes it's a must-see series here. And, obviously, the Winter Soldier and the Falcon, taking the mantle from Captain America. It's not the same as the Captain America character here. Would they would it be better if they would just to reboot it or create a different storyline rather than continuation? Well, the verdict is out. If people didn't like it, no one will watch it either way. Anyway, there have been a lot of setbacks as mentioned, but they're still pushing through with the production here, with the release of certain films, and obviously has been delayed significantly. It was thought or planned early on from last year, but obviously due to the pandemic they have to change their schedule here, and to the point I think Black Widow was supposed to be launched last year and has been pushed all the way to this year. Then there are other films that people can look forward if you are interested. Based on my experience, it's getting to the point it's becoming more saturated. People will get tired eventually unless you offer the big guns in terms of popularity, the most popular characters here. Now, the projects that was mentioned here, the in 2023, the Thunderbolts film adaptation, and then the Fantastic Four movie. And again, they need to get the actors right, as well as the story itself. I think the plot line where Fantastic Four and Silver Surfer and Galactus intertwine the story would be tremendous. But obviously, it's hard to create a story within a film. Now, is it just a standalone film, or do you need sequels to be able to tell a full story? Just like I mean, the verdict is out on Eternals that they had 10 characters here, and how do you tell a congruent story is a very difficult task in itself. Should they have made two separate films to be able to introduce the characters first before introducing the antagonist here? And don't get me on the plot twist at the end. So I leave it up to you to decide whether it was a worthwhile experience here. And anyway, going back here, then the sequel for the Black Panther Wakanda Forever spin-off. Now, will it do better? Now, obviously, the passing of the original Black Panther here now going to be replaced by her sister, played by Dinah Gurira. I hope I'm pronouncing her name properly. Anyway, will it do as well as it did before? Who knows? And then what else? Yes, as mentioned, so if you've watched Shang-Chi, obviously they've already indicated in the mid-credits and post-credit that there's going to be a sequel after this one, regardless if it did well or not. But let's see here. Yes, now for the Thunderbolts lineup, I'm not familiar with that storyline. So there's Kingpin, named that character. There's Taskmaster, Crossbone, Typhoid Mary, Shocker, Whiplash, Rhino, and Craven the Hunter. So I think many of those characters were arch enemies of Spider-Man here. So we'll see. Anyway, is everyone here looking forward to its iteration, or people are getting to that point of can you give us a better character, a better storyline, or maybe after the what do you call this? After the Avengers story with Thanos, maybe they could focus on the Secret Wars here. I think that would be tremendous. But obviously, again, you need to have the big players here, the main characters front and center here, from Captain America to Thor to Iron Man and whatnot. But obviously, 10 years, that's a lot of time, and it's going to be expensive if they were going to recast those same actors, and obviously those actors would be tired playing those characters over and over for the past decade or so. But the question is, will it do well? Now, based on their lineup here, so after the Eternals, so you have Spider-Man No Way Home next to bat, which I think will do well. But will it reach the 1 billion mark like in their previous release of uh, Spider-Man Far From Home. And obviously, if they don't, if they're not able to release it in the China market, I think it's going to affect their revenue here. Then you have Doctor Strange, which I think will do well, maybe not the same level, but I think a lot of people will be looking forward to that storyline. And then you have Thor, The Love and Thunder. Now I don't know what the storyline here. I think they were mentioned that the character of Jane will become Thor here also. So I don't know how they're going to present it. So hopefully they can do justice rather than just, create a weird story, to say the least. And then you have Black Panther, which will be launched also sometime late November next year. Then the year after that, the Marvels, as I mentioned. Then you have Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, which is the last one. And then finally, based on their release slate, the Ant-Man and the Wasp, the Quantum Mania, is it? Let me see the title. Is it the Quantum Mania? I don't know. The Quantum Mania, yeah, that's right. So that's 2-3 years from now. Now, do they have more plans to release more film? It would be a difficult task to do that unless they do the reboot, which is, can be tiring after a while. And then you have the TV series that they're focusing on. You have Loki, and then you have the Hawkeye, which will be released later this December. And then what do you call this? Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I don't know who's watching that. Even WandaVision, I had high expectation there, but I didn't like that series anyway. And then they have plans to release what's the name of the character? I forgot. Moon something. I forgot. It looks interesting. Looks like similar to how Batman is being portrayed here. So would be interesting if they can do it right, but based on their track record after, during the pandemic and now, I'm very pessimistic, but one can only hope here. What do you think? Will Marvel be able to rebound, or will the franchise suffer, costing billions of dollars for Disney on buying the IP here and then, not getting the desired results that they're looking for here? Anyway, next we have here is Netflix. One of the more popular shows that they have released, aside from you have Stranger Things, then you have what's the other one? The Witcher, and then they have a suddenly popular Squid Game TV series. Now, when it was launched, I didn't see it right away, but later on, I was curious, and when I started watching it, and then it got me curiouser. It has the vibe of, Hunger Games, of how it's being portrayed, but obviously in a different setting and situation altogether. And what's interesting here, according to the article here at techtimes.com, it mentions that, what do you call this? It mentions that an ISP provider in South Korea is suing the the company Netflix here for doing so well because of the sudden influx of internet downloads, and obviously it could have crashed the system in South Korea. Now, can you blame Netflix for doing such a great thing? Now, obviously, maybe it was a miscalculation for the ISP provider, that not knowing that there was going to be a surge of demand that could have caused so much traffic in their system here. And obviously, Netflix, as mentioned here, has rejected the South Koreans' demand for, they had to pay that extra fee for doing so well. Maybe the issue here is that, what do you call this? That the ISP provider did not charge appropriately. If that were the case, whether you're charging for, whether it's 5 Mbps, 10, 20, 50, 100, or even more Mbps, and then if it's unlimited or limited usage here, that's on the company's fault for not, understanding the laws of supply and demand here. And obviously, since last year, then they consider that demand for content online will be at an all-time high, especially, during the lockdown, and, as people easing back to their normal activities, there's still going to be a demand for, for internet service. And they should have anticipated that, not blame companies for doing their job and so forth. Anyway, let's see here. So what was being asked here from the ISP provider is that there should be additional fees, sorry, fees, so that they could discourage other rivals, such as Disney, Amazon, from investing in the Asian country here. Now, according to the South Korean internet ISP provider, that's SK Broadband, took Netflix to court to collect fees for the streaming services giant for its excessive network usage. Now, you cannot fault the company for doing that, meaning the consumers like what they saw and they wanted to use more of it. So either you charge a higher fee at the beginning, not, or maybe you could charge later on, but cannot blame the companies here. Imagine if there were a lot of people in the United States or anywhere else in the world were watching, let's say, The Mandalorian, then the ISP provider said, this is not fair. We need to charge more. Then you should have changed your pricing scheme on the onset. Now, would people use your services or just go to a different company? Well, that's another discussion here. Anyway, so going back, where was it? Yeah, there you go. The Netflix executive further noted that the customer of the said internet service provider are already paying for the internet that they are using to stream the content on the service. So, meaning there's an exchange of service. So we get to use your internet access so that we can watch the content that we want, and everybody benefits. Now, is the ISP provider being greedy here? Because not understanding the surge in demand. They should have anticipated this even from last year, but obviously saying that they should be charged more. Netflix is stating now that if you were to do that is somewhat unfair and anti-competitive, which has credence on it. Now, question here is, will the courts side on the company here, on Netflix, or for the ISP provider here? Now, for me, I think it makes sense for Netflix not to be charged or penalized for not doing their job, which is provide tremendous content for the consumers here. And obviously, it should be on the onus on the ISP provider to set the market rates properly and not blame the buyers or the sellers here in terms of the increase of demand here. Anyway, I think people would still consume content here now. Would people still use your service if you were to charge more? Obviously, that's why competition is important, so that if there's a increase in price, people has an option to just choose a different ISP provider, as long as they can provide better service, deliver the actual service that they are offering, especially here in a country where connections are somewhat intermittent, not consistent, not tremendous, and yet it's expensive. So obviously, as a consumer, we expect more. I mean, we don't mind paying for that extra buck as long as we get the speed that we need, the consistency that we need from the services here. Imagine, it used to be in my time, way back in the 90s, when you're trying to go online, when you type a website, it takes a few seconds, minutes actually. It's loading. You will see the sundial moving, turning around. So it's that long. Now we're reaching to a point that a few seconds is not enough. It has to be, by the time you click enter, it has to be instantaneous. And obviously, we demand better service. We should get better service. Now, are companies allowed to charge more? Obviously, they can, as long as they're providing tremendous service here. But obviously, here in a country, that varies from ISP provider to another. So that's on us as consumers to demand more, help them on a higher standard, so to speak. Anyway, next we have here in terms of technology still, wherein computers should be on an all-time high despite demand is an all-time high despite the chip shortage here. But what's interesting here, according to techspot.com, demand for low-end laptop or affordable laptop has plummeted, and it's got nothing to do with the shortage as mentioned earlier. Now, it got me interested, and one would think that affordable laptops would be enticing for many people, especially if you're trying to use it for many purposes, whether it's for school purposes or even just for home usage for day-to-day activities here. Now, it just gives me credence that maybe people are demanding more from their manufacturers to provide better product and as well as better service here. So let's see here. So according to the article, the pandemic prompted work and learn from home orders worldwide, which is obviously caused by the pandemic. So resulting for high demand for many technological devices, whether it's smartphones, tablets, laptops, or even desktops. So whether it's for work and education. So things like the Chromebook would be ideal here. Now, I'm not a big fan of Chromebooks because of its entry level and its limitation. But there's always a demand for affordable. Now, based on on this article, that's not the case here. So one would suspect because of the CPU shortage would be the main rationale here, but that's not the case here. So let's see here. According to Mercury Research, just experienced a biggest quarter-over-quarter decline in laptop CPU shipments. So meaning demand. So the shipment fell by more than 18 million units, and that's a pretty significant chunk. One would think it should go higher. And lower-end chips like the Celeron and Athlons were those hit hardest. And it was the worst on-quarter downturn for mobile CPUs in the history of PC CPU. So question here is, was there any connection with the pandemic as mentioned? And according to here, there was no connection in the ongoing global chip shortage. Instead, I mentioned a reduction in demand for entry-level laptops like Chromebooks. So meaning people's preferences have shifted already. I mean, one would like to have their own laptops, but if they are not able to provide the many features that one is accustomed to, let's say maybe being able to not just do their work, school, but be able to play at the same time. And obviously entry level cannot do that. And obviously doing multifunction like maybe doing spreadsheet is one. How about watching content online and many more. And I think it just goes to show here, if people or consumers are not happy with the product, they're always looking for a better quality product at an affordable prices. So the dilemma for many manufacturers as to how are they able to provide those products, especially technology-wise, which can easily become obsolete in just a few years' time. And obviously the cost in investing on those to develop those technologies takes time. And obviously the demand for consumers, as you can see that companies like Apple, Tesla have to reinvent themselves. But on a yearly basis, that's very difficult to do. And even in gaming, we've discussed this. That's why it's kind of disappointing that companies are trying to rush out products, services in terms of games, smartphones, or whatnot, that is not fully formed because of the demand from customers, not just to have certain products, but to have a better product at an affordable rate here. And will this change or trend continue in the near future? I think so. So maybe there will be fewer demand, fewer options for low end. So meaning mid-tier to high-end laptops would be the preferred round here. And even in my experience, I mean, as much as I want to save on a buck or two here to be able to afford to buy a laptop, but obviously you have to look long term here, meaning what are you planning to use your laptop? So considering the different aspects of where do you plan to use it, so that you can invest, even if it's a costly investment at the start, but obviously long term can be more beneficial for you. And in my case, I bought the Dell XPS 15 early last year. And I even though it's somewhat expensive, choosing the latest at the time anyway, it has touchscreen, it has NVMe SSD, not the highest storage, but in terms of the discrete GPU included there, so it's going to cost a lot. So meaning I plan to use it for several years, maybe 5 or even more if I'm lucky. So if you spread it out, you know, if it's 100,000 or more, you divide it by 5, it's costing you 20,000 a year. Is it worth it? Obviously, it varies depending on the user themselves. If you can afford it, you can invest on uh, good devices, then so be it. Now, can everyone do the same? Obviously, it varies here. That's why options is always ideal. Having the option to choose whether you want to buy a low-end, mid-tier, or high-end computers or desktop versus laptops is always preferable here. And I'm a big advocate of having choices, so that at the end of the day, you can always find the best product for your usage, whether it's Windows based or even Apple based. Obviously, in terms of Apple, you only have one choice here, but either way, so you can, if I'm not happy with Windows, can I use should I use Apple instead, Mac OS, and so forth. Anyway, next, let's talk about more on retail segment now. Obviously, the upcoming Christmas holiday, a lot of companies are trying to rebound from last year, obviously, and taking advantage of the holidays is one of the key drivers here, and especially for big retailers such as you have Walmart, Kroger, Instacart are trying to cash in on their advertising here. So according to businessinsider.com, they're trying to do that, but this is causing a lot of headaches for those big brands that are partnering with those. Obviously, there are many issues here. Now, does it benefit both parties, meaning the brands as well as the retailers here? Let's take a closer look. Now, one of the main issues now that's being not speculated but mentioned in this article here, that for all the benefits that, what do you call this, that big retailers are, have a lot of customers that visit their retail stores, getting our information or customers information is a given. That's why when you are required to subscribe to get discounts, they get your information, and they don't just store it, but they sell it to advertisers so that they can target a specific product for you if you prefer it. Makes it easier, similar how Google works and Facebook works. So obviously, this case, they're trying to sell you a product here, and obviously it makes sense to partner with those two groups, but there are apprehensions from the brands themselves, and namely, advertisers are concerned that the retailers you have to custom fit the program to each individual retailer, and it's not a unified system here, so makes it difficult and costly, obviously. And another concern that they mention is that even if they were to partner, obviously compared to Amazon, which has a big audience, the companies like Walmart and such have a very small audience, so making it that investing on those technologies or advertisements may not be ideal here. So one would think that using traditional means or to other platforms may be the safer route here. And it's not only just that advertisers are said that the retailer platforms have different ways of buying and measuring their advertisements. So it's difficult for them to know whether how many individuals did actually purchase because of the advertisements through their platforms here, which is obviously companies, or like in this case big retailers, are very apprehensive sharing their information, which is another big problem altogether. And the issue here is it's not only small, that the advertisers need more information. So no one wants to invest on something that they don't know if they're getting any returns of any sort here. Obviously, if I invest my money in my marketing, my product, I expect to see result, whether it's good or bad. So that should I invest more? Now, obviously, for those big retailers, they want you to keep on spending more money and more, regardless of the outcome. That's why, looking at how the business model for Amazon is working tremendous for them, obviously at the expense of the data that is being shared by the users themselves. Obviously, there's a trade-off here. We get better products, hopefully, and better service, hopefully in exchange of giving our information here. And I have no problem with what our company is doing that. Now, are they being responsible in terms of who gets to see my information and what type of information is being shared here? Well, that's a totally different discussion here altogether. The question here is, will more company be investing in those big platforms moving forward? Obviously, online is it's not going away anytime soon, and it's going to be the trend moving forward. Now, you may still have a retail store like before, but I think the pie will be divided now. Now, whether it be dominated by the retail brick and mortar concept or versus online selling, only time can tell. It's always driven by the consumer here at the end of the day here. Anyway, lastly, for our story, last story, we have, in the automotive. If you're into sports cars, which I am, I wish I have a sports car, which is kind of very restrictive because it's very expensive. But as I was doing some research sometime before, that I was interested in looking for any alternative sports car outside of the big brands such as Ferrari, Lamborghinis, Bugatti, and so forth. I saw this Mazda sports car. Now, it's not at the same level, but the Mazda MX series is kind of interesting in terms of its usability for day-to-day use. Now, obviously, for those other brands that I mentioned, it will not be practical to drive it here for day-to-day purposes here. Now, in terms of the MX series, that's a different discussion altogether here. So as you can look here, obviously it's nothing too fancy about it, and you can see here from the first variation of their Miata from the 90s all the way to the present, very little has changed here. And actually the main market when it was launched was targeting the female segment, and obviously as time moved on, it has evolved to cater to not just the female segment as well as the male. And what got me interested, not just in this one, but I think it was last year's model or last year, I forgot which one, wherein they were offering convertible, right? Now, convertible is good in its concept, but obviously in our setting here in the Asia countries here, having convertible top is a recipe for disaster, for getting break-in of car, getting stolen, or losing your valuable items inside your vehicle. But anyway, they introduced a hardtop model, a retractable hardtop model, which is got me interested in. If I were to purchase one in sometime in the future, I might considering purchasing the Mazda Miata, I think from 2020. I think. Anyway, so here they have launched a new version. It's called the MX-5 990S. So it's the same as the original Miata. So let's take a closer look. So the interesting about this one is, so it looks cool. It's a sports car, right? It's a two-seater. I don't know if it has a retractable roof, but the other versions that they have showcased before, the soft top. I think this is a soft top. It's easily retractable. You have to do this manually, and then the hard top can be done automatically. The side thing here is, if you're interested to purchase this particular version, it's only being sold in Japan. Now, if it's become more popular, I think they will introduce this in other markets as well. Hopefully here in the Philippines, but we'll see. I mean, I like the design. It's very simple. I mean, nothing too ostentatious. And as I mentioned, one of the key features here, it's good to you can drive it for everyday usage, whatever that everyday is, whether it's going to work, for leisure. Obviously, the seating capacity is very limiting, but obviously that's a preference of my own. Now, I wouldn't choose white as my color of choice, but obviously they have other colors here. Anyway, let's take a look at the specs here. As mentioned, for the MX-5 or Miata series, now in terms of its looks, it's nothing too gregarious as mentioned. It's a fun to drive attitude here, and take note, it's not the most powerful sports car in the world, but in terms of handling, it's very effective in what it does. Obviously, with the minuscule size here and with the power to weight ratio, makes it fun to drive with. And if you consider driving the big cars like the Lamborghini, uh, and the Ferraris, whatnot, I think, I don't know which model was it for the Lamborghini, that you have to open the scissor doors and then you have to sit on the edge so you can reverse because of the limited view at the back here. And in this one, you will not have any problems of any sort. So it's just like driving a regular car, obviously a sports car at that. So let's look at the specs here. So it's very not power hungry. It only has 1.5 liter, and it only just weighs less than 1,000 kilograms, or a little over 2,000 pounds here. What else? So the Mazda team cut the difference a few ways, making it heavier. With the unsprung side, kart gets new wheels from Race, which save around 7 pounds. So obviously, for a sports car, you want less weight so it can run faster, move quickly. And then they've made an improved brakes by Brembo. They shave a few more ounces on each other corner for a total loss of around 1.5 pounds. Now, a pound may not seem much, but in terms of car, just think of not Ferrari vehicles, but F1 vehicles, right? When they're trying to compete for the Constructors' Championship, every kilograms that you're saving could make your car move faster and obviously win the race in the end here. Now, is it a must-buy here for car enthusiasts? Obviously not. You can buy something more practical here, but obviously a sports car is not necessarily a practical choice. Now, is it a dream car? Not necessarily, but in terms of practicality here, if I were to buy a sports car sometime in the future, this is a car model that I'm seriously considering purchasing in the future here. Anyway, I think that concludes our discussion for this week. I hope everyone enjoyed the topics we've covered here. If you have any questions, leave your comments down below, or you can check the link in the description for the full article here. As always, thanks for watching. I'll see everyone again next week. Same time-ish, 3 p.m.-ish, preferably. But always the same channel here. Then that's it. Take care and stay safe.